Okay, folks, this is the last talk of the day. Figured we'd do something a little different. Rather than having one presenter talk for an hour, we've got three presenters that are each going to do about 20 minutes. We've got Vyruss, Merlin, and CP. They've been working on some interesting stuff with Wi-Fi and Firefox. Because it was you guys are going to present on the Wi-Fi thing, right? Oh, you're not going to do the Wi-Fi thing after all. Okay, so just Firefox stuff.
Well, there's this issue, the sniffer thing.
Okay, well, before I ramble on any further, I'm going to just go ahead and let you guys talk. So.
All right. So talk about whatever you're talking about. All right, so I'm CP from DC949, and this is our mixed bag of fun, that's right. So I'll be presenting on hacking with Firefox, and I'll be giving some specific examples of things that I have done using Firefox and how it might benefit you guys. So let's get started. So we're going to look at practical hacking with Firefox, and I know most of you probably use Firefox, probably use it for just checking your email and watching porn, the various things that most of us kind of people like to do. But when it comes right down to it, there's a lot of possibilities that aren't open to most of us when it comes to Firefox. There are a few extensions out there like Tamper Data and Hackbar, and if you saw us talk yesterday, there was one about SQL injection and stuff like that. Pretty good stuff. But I'm hoping to open this all to anyone who can develop or even can't develop but wants to learn how, because it's very easy. So hacking Firefox, yes, Firefox. It's very, relatively easier to maintain when you're developing for Firefox, and if you're building an application from the ground up, the development time is a lot lower when it comes to because you're already building off of a structured application like Firefox. And you have access to a lot of the unique systems that are already inherent to Firefox, like AJAX systems, session handling, or rather cookie handling, and you can run JavaScript and Flash and all the various assortments of server-side, or rather client-side code that can be used to your advantage, like AJAX cookies and Flash. And you don't have to worry about operating system differences, because any operating system that will run Firefox will run the Firefox extension. So if you code it properly, you won't have any issues. Yeah, we all use them. A few of us build them. I don't know why, because they're really, really easy to make. All you really need to know is some JavaScript, and I'm pretty sure most of us can run JavaScript. I'm pretty sure. There's also a XUL, which is the XML user interface language, which is developed by Mozilla. It's very easy to learn. You could probably learn it in a weekend. It's basically the front end, which gives interaction to whatever you write with the back end in JavaScript. There's a lot of potential here, a lot of untapped uses. I feel like a lot of us, in fact, most of us in the industry, like to think is a Firefox with a browser that has the ability to build tools upon. But I like to look at it a little bit more uniquely, like it's a toolbox that has a browser. So if we can expand beyond that, it could do all of us a lot of good for web application security and auditing. It gives you the control over the input-output access of your hard disk as well as anything on the web, like, say, a form. And if you learned yesterday from the other Firefox talk, you can automate SQL injection and cross-site scripting auditing. So beyond that, I'm going to be giving some examples, some specific security-related auditing / kind of interesting tools that I have created over the last couple of years. One of them being Toast, which is a anti-scraping scraper. It helps scrape pages that are scrape resistant. And Happy Dance, which if anyone was at DEF CON last year will remember as the ACTF pwnage, which, yeah, not too many people were happy about that, but I'll go over that as a form of malware. So Toast is what I like to refer to as a post-rendered DOM scraper, meaning that there are certain websites that don't want you to scrape them, obviously. theft of usage and users, ad revenue, whatever the reason. So they implement forms of JavaScript and Flash and any kind of client-side code that will ambush any bot that's trying to scrape the source, making it very difficult to get the plain text source out of it. And what occurred to me is that Firefox already does that. It already handles JavaScript and Flash and any client-side code, and all of the source code that you're looking for exists in the DOM after all of that runs. Pretty much bypasses every instance of a client-side anti-scraping techniques. So I think, yes, that's what it stands for, by the way, the overactive scraping technique. I do have a demo. No, I don't.
Sorry, Strom.
Yeah, sorry, Strom. I do have a demo. I do have a demo, which my slide wouldn't have liked to tell you that. It is well prepared, Strom, so I'm hoping it'll work.
I'm just getting your reputations.
Okay. So,
No party policy. Hope you guys all have read it.
yes, as of this morning, this is the new policy at the front desk.
It wasn't there when we got it.
No. So, if everyone can see this page, it may look familiar to you. It is the Hacker Manifesto. It's pretty interesting how this gets created. If you look at the source here, all we're going to see is some style information and an iframe. And if you go to that web page, you'll get that source again. And whatever iframe you go to will continue to show you that iframe through a series of session handling and passes off the get parameter, and basically through various levels of anti-scraping techniques is my kind of proof of concept for this. It also uses a Flash file to take gibberish code and decrypt it into the Hacker Manifesto here. I don't know if you see that. Oh, that's great.
Those are all the iframes?
Yeah, those are all the iframes. Anyway, it does a few different things, and when it comes right down to it, it's just that. So a browser can see it, but all a bot will see is this. And even if they try to go to that, they're going to get that again. And if they get through all that, then there's still the encrypted source. So what I have here is a little Firefox extension written completely in JavaScript and XUL. Right before that, literally like 10 minutes ago. Very easy to write. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how it works. What you see here is the original content of the page through all the encryptions and obfuscations and the final content in a JavaScript alert, which basically signals the fact that we've had succession in scraping the content. Now, we also have a way to do that without even opening the window. And no, it's not an AJAX call. It actually is rendering a -1 by -1 width and height window. So it doesn't exist, technically. But it does then pull the DOM after all the JavaScript and Flash runs to deobfuscate and unencrypt the obfuscation methods, and gives you the source code that you're looking for. Oh, by the way, if anyone has any questions or comments, just yell them out now to help me kind of expand my time here. So, yes, Israel.
Once you have we'll go back and do your
This? All right, the thingy?
Once you have it in that window, you can control insert and put in a pattern.
Well,
That's basically a
this literally is a browser window.
Okay.
This is just a browser window. If I control you in here, no, there's no context stuff. So it's a limited browser because I've told it to be so, because I want it to be invisible. I've only increased the width and height of the invisible window to show the process. But it is all JavaScript. It does just load the window, and then once the content is loaded and deobfuscated, it does pull the final DOM out of the page. So anything else for now? Okay. So I'm going to move back into my slides. All right, so how about that party last night, yeah? No? There we go. All right, so the other example I have for you guys today is Happy Dance, which was part of, there we go, which was part of the Amateur Capture the Flag game last year at DEF CON. I presented it as a login authentication for one of the flags, where a user would be provided a web page with a form to log in, but they were unable to because it did not have this extension. So then they were then linked to addons.mozilla.org, which we were spoofing locally, which downloaded this extension. And when they ran it, it would authenticate them as a loginable user. I know I just made up a word, but just bear with me. As a user that's able to log in. And they would score. Very simple. They could just log in and score. What they didn't realize was the fact that it was also a piece of malware, which then used AJAX calls to send in plain text all of the stored passwords to the server, which is then displayed at the end of the game for fun. And excuse me, a lot of users didn't realize this. I was kind of concerned about that because I thought it was a hacking convention that hackers are going to and playing in a hacking game, but apparently people didn't realize that they were going to be hacked. I didn't know that, so I seem to have given people too much trust in their. I don't know. Yeah, it definitely goes to show people that even though we're hackers, we're still susceptible to being hacked, and a lot of times we just don't practice what we preach. Anyway, so yeah, it also, I missed that point, it also ran any code on the client side in JavaScript. So we were doing things like making their browsers close and open indefinitely, or opening up pictures of Goatsy, then freezing the browser so they can get away from it. Actually, one of the teams, we had opened their browser to meatspin.com, which don't go there. Not here, at least. Yes, there was one of the team members actually left it open playing, and I walked by. I'm like, that's supposed to disturb you. She's like, I know, but I really, really like this. I walked away, needless to say. So I really hope that a lot of people learned their lesson last year, and this year it's going to be a lot worse. So I hope they come prepared.
Rick Astley this time?
It may be Risk Astley. It may be Meatspin with Rick Astley. So, yes, there we're going.
You might get everything.
You might get everything.
You might get everything.
So yeah, that's this dick rolled, duck rolled. That's the end of my little presentation. If anyone has any comments or questions, just throw them out now, or you can come and talk to me after closing ceremonies. That'll be at the end of everything here. Yep. Did I get any hate mail? No, but I'm actually.
No.
I got a lot of I got a lot of people coming up to me after the game saying, "You got me." So to this day, I think at the last Irvine Underground meeting I was at, someone came up to me and was spouting some hate. But anyway, with that said, I think Merlin is the next one up.
What?
Escape. Yeah, give it a second. It's, I don't know. Yeah, yours is good.
Whoa. It doesn't like having multiple things in.
No, just go over to normal, hit F5.
Come on.
What's the advantage of free and open source software?
Personally, I blame Windows.
Yes.
Oh, you didn't change the
I did
gay.
change it.
I'm
It
sorry
didn't say
for
it.
the gay transition. It's going to be there. All right. I'm Merlin of DC949. My talk is HOWL as a hacking tool, which is just a short little practical guide with a little teeny bit of source code prefaced by a short, extremely short history of artificial life and artificial intelligence development compared to security and the types of development we need to. All right. Basically, AI has been around since the 50s or so. They had a whole lot of very hard problems thrown at them. They tried a whole bunch of different methods. They went in with lots of enthusiasm, and they fell flat on their face. In the end, they came up with some good, solid design methods that can lead you to a solution for all kinds of really any problem. And that basically is working from the bottom up. As you may or may not know, there's two basic design principles: top-down design and bottom-up design. Top-down design basically is, all right, we need a program that does all of these various things. So we're going to lay it out from, we're going to lay it out from the top, which is the logical program unit, and then start building down towards the bottom, which is each little piece of functionality that it does. The other side of things is the bottom-up development, where you start at each little component and you put those together to build one larger entity. Just a short little thing, many of you may or may not know, a lot of or the original quote-unquote hackers were all around AI labs. They may not have been in the AI lab, but that's where the processors were, so that's where people were hacking. Basically, as hackers, just like AI people, they came to these conclusions based on trying to solve very hard-to-define problems. We also have very hard-to-define problems. How do you keep access from Joe Random Hacker, but still allow it for Joe Random Nice User? It's really, there's a whole lot of complexity involved, and taming that complexity leads to a lot of difficulties in design and implementation. You can do it. Yes. All right. The takeaway for you guys is all that I'm talking about is just a simple thing that you can take it home. Next time you work on a project, even if it's not necessarily programming, you can think about it from the bottom up. Maybe take a few minutes, maybe take a few hours. Kind of depends on the complexity of what you're doing, but trust me, it will help you. The basic idea behind it is that if you're working on the components and trying to improve those components, they're going to be better at what they do. They're going to work faster. They're going to work more efficiently. They're going to be able to just do their job. They don't have to worry about anything else. That's all they're concerned about. And from a security perspective, too, that's how you want your programs, man. You want pieces of your program to not affect any other piece of another program, or, hey, you might be dealing with vulnerabilities. And like I'm saying, lots of really effective pieces lead to extremely effective systems. As I said before in the beginning, the AI community promised it could deliver all sorts of amazing results, and they failed. They were trying too hard to take a few extremely smart guys, put them in a room, and say, we need you to build everything from scratch, from the top. And they tried, but it just fell apart. It's just unwieldy. The problems are too complex. It's just hard to just drill down to the right granularity to do every little thing. One thing that did evolve from this is Lisp, which is relatively, compared to other programming languages, while it is a bit crazy and weird to a lot of people, syntactically it's very simple. It's basically you have two different kinds of expressions, and then everything else is a list. Data, code, all the same. Pretty simple compared to operator overloading rules in C++, for example. From all of this, along these same lines, which is exactly what I'm talking about, we have our Unix and our Linux command line interface tools. You've got everything from netcat, cat, grep, more, pretty much every tool that you use on the terminal every day. Each one, most, I don't know if you guys are in with the more, less thing. Now there's most. Most is good. You can put all of these little utilities, which do their simple jobs very well, together to produce scripts that are basically themselves even better utilities. Basically, the sum is greater. The sum of all the parts is greater than each part alone, because that's just the way it works. Same kind of thing like dude yesterday was talking about in the AI or in the malware talk, using the community pool as a reference point for finding new malware. I mean, each part by itself is not that strong, but together it does a lot more. Firefox, Metasploit, and Emacs, whether you love it or hate it, are examples of such programs that are extensible, and you can create many far-ranging tools and etc. in any of these things. So you can just cover all kinds of ground. You don't have to do as much work because you're only focusing on your goal. So like if you want to make a Metasploit module to get the new Debian SSH vulnerability taken care of, that's all you have to write. You don't have to write anything else. You just write your code. You get to focus on it. Obviously, it's easier. Top-down design is just so complicated because and with most problems, you just can't think of everything. And once you commit to a design, it's really difficult to change it to account for something new that you learn later. With bottom-up design, you can deal with anything because you're just basically putting pieces together. So all you have to do is change your glue. The minimum cost is, as I said, you can take a few minutes, maybe a few hours. This will impact you in the future because all of your current projects using bottom-up design will feed into later projects using bottom-up design because you're building everything together into a coherent system. You might try to consciously engage in this sort of exercise, as probably many of you already do some of this on your own. I mean, you know, you pick and choose where needed. One very important thing is you want to keep your connections between components as simple as possible, and we definitely found this out because I was also going to bring an actual demo for you guys, but the connections were not as simple as they could have been because we wanted it to fit later designs, and we failed. Long story short. You also want to make your tool or component or whatever you're working on as interoperable with everything else that you possibly can. I mean, it should be able to work by itself. You should be able to adapt it to work in another system or even compiled code because they allow it. It should be able to work as a Firefox extension. You should be able to wrap it in a Firefox extension and therefore extend Firefox with your tool, which does its job really well. Everyone can do these things, and we all benefit, especially if it's open source, because it goes back in to the pool, and we all share, which we all like. My example is what we were working on with Vyruss's sniffer project. Just a simple little module class. It's really not important. All that's very important is the three center functions. You have a load, a consume, and a say thing, which then equates to an actual C or C++ file where you just have these functions that match these values. As you can see, though, complexity will bite you on the ass. If you look to the left, that's just a portion of our project. And the demo that I was going to show you, we built our test rig, and as you can see down here in the middle, there's a nice little failure to use my object, though we tried until the last minute. Otherwise, you would have had a nice little sniffer demo, but as you can see, it does work. I know it was kind of abstract and not really too much point. But if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask. One final thing that I definitely forgot to mention is not only is this something that the AI community learned, but in direct reference to the stopping malware talk yesterday, the antivirus community has also learned this. They were trying to design top-down solutions. Hey, man, we'll just have a signature hash for every virus. That'll always work. Oh, no, it doesn't. It's just really best to go from the bottom up. Lots of experience has shown this. Try and apply it. That's all I can say. Any questions? I guess then, without further ado, Vyruss will be up.
Hello. Oh, it is on. Damn short people. Okay. Why does my toolbox need its own forklift? Don't like that thing. So, what my talk is basically is a kind of elongated version of a dinner session and a little bit of alcohol. And basically, I was sitting around with a friend. We were talking about a video game and stuff that it did that we didn't like, and how rather than find out how to do what we wanted to do within the systems of the game, we should just break it. How many of you have ever tried to reverse a protocol for something simple, like, highlighting a word or, catching something? Yeah, okay. It's always harder than it starts out, isn't it? Fact of life, right? Well, after thinking about it, I don't really think so. Basically we're talking about network stuff most of the time, right? But this will get broader as we go along. So almost every sniffer out there, because of course if you're going to reverse a network protocol, you're going to have to sniff stuff, uses PCAP. Most of them are not application specific. It's not, it only sniffs packets for this application and then displays them a certain way, although there are some out there. and most of them provide some kind of user interface to get your data out, which tends to be cryptic. Oh, TCP dump will do everything you want to do. Okay, seriously? I've seen some really great packet ninjas, but I don't give a crap who you are. That crap is hard to read, and you know it, okay? Nobody wants to stare at hex for the rest of their life. They just don't want to do it. Most of the network sniffers that are made to do something specific, like there's the name sniffer out there. I forget what it's called. Kane Enable does a lot of VoIP stuff. Ettercap is really big on injection. There's a couple of post things that try to catch email passwords with POP and whatever. Almost all of them suffer from the false positive problem or errors on the network because they're too specific. Almost all of them, actually, I haven't found one that doesn't suffer from this, suffers from developmental stagnation, where pretty much somebody made it for a specific job and it worked for about maybe 6 months, and then everybody forgot about it. Or the protocol changed and it just stopped being developed, which is a good idea down the drain. Or security. Yes, even your packet sniffer can be a security risk. How many of you use Wireshark and not Ethereal? How many of you use Kismet? Okay, if you get it from your packet manager or package manager of your distro, have you made sure it's not vulnerable to the, oh, look, I can put a null byte in front of my ESID and you don't see it? Point made. So now what, right? We have this problem. What do we do about it? This was my solution. And hopefully it'll be as cool as the picture. Okay, so Sushi is my attempt to solve the problem. Closer look. So Sushi is this kind of amorphous, kind of ultra-modular Firefox-style program thing, glue, that hopefully will take all the components of protocol engineering and reverse engineering and make them modular. The idea is that if I want to have something that references data out of multiple sources, so you want to get network data and GSM data, like Hikari was talking about, doing some of the live sniffer stuff. Well, right now you'd have to write 2 completely independent libraries, one for PCAP and one for a GSM sniffer. You'd have to invent. Then invent your own data management system. You got to do a lot of work before you even get to what you want to do. So the goal of this is to kind of get rid of that. Closer look at some of the parts. The way that Sushi basically works is he calls it sniffers. Its sniffers call it, and it sends that data to 2 places. To its storage class up here, which, okay, there's no mouse, so you can't, oh, there we go. To a storage class, which is basically, it just stores whatever you get from either the sniffers or the modules. And a modules class, which most of the time will just be glorified pattern matching. It's just a big fat regex most of the time. But it's modular, so you can expand it. And then all of these things will go to interfaces, which will be modular as well. So you'll be able to look at whatever you want to look at and whatever you want to store the way you want to do it without having to write all this glue again. That's the goal. Sniffers. An example of a sniffer would obviously be PCAP, or there is a rudimentary GSM data class. I forget what it's called. I fail. Anyway, it's out there. Talk to me after. I'll look it up if you really want to know what it is. But an example of a sniffer would be a couple talks before this. They were talking about pulling stuff out of RAM. Maybe you've got some custom hardware thing that pulls out RAM images. That would be a sniffer because that's raw data. Bluetooth sniffers. Shmoo a couple of years back was talking about their Bluetooth sniper rifle that sniffed in raw form. Perfect example. Signal generators. There's tons of RF stuff out there. CDMA, 3G, FRS, HDTV stuff. Anything. Any data source that is repeatable and that has to deal with segmented data segments, you can turn into a sniffer, and it's modular, so you don't have to worry about it breaking something else. So Sushi then takes all this stuff from your sniffer and puts it into your modules. And examples of modules, we have this map of how this thing is supposed to look, and there's this incredibly huge list of modules you want to build, and there's no way for me to put it into one slide. But like the first one we were talking about doing is like a simple module. So there would be a module that would take like a text file as an example, and you'd have hex on one side and plain text on the other side, and it would just find whatever you're looking for and not put it in segments. The concept of something like a fuzzy module, where if you have data that doesn't match any other modules, it'll kind of try to figure it out heuristically, try a bunch of crypto tricks, see what works. If it works, you can actually learn stuff. Crypto stuff. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, and then output, something simple that you can read, that you're not looking at gibberish. Cryptonomicron, stuff like that. Anyway, there's a bunch of stuff. Interfaces. If the fact that the interfaces are modular means you can display the data however you want. Suppose you want to have a Matrix Gibson-looking 3D thing that you can grab balls of data and move them around. Sure, make it. You've only got to write the interface. It's modular. You don't have to go write the sniffer and all the other junk for it. The basic start point for the project when we release it is going to be an N-Curses GUI. There'll be an X after that, and it will be multi-platform. So I'm sure there'll be a raw one that runs in text that'll work on Windows. But people will be able to write more. And in the storage class, which this is kind of specific, but basically anything out of a module or anything out of a sniffer you can store in a unique queue of its type. So no problems there. Questions on the program, what it's trying to solve? Sniffers in general. Okay then. Contact info, questions for anybody? Okay, we're done.
Plug Megan if you want.
Oh, the slide died.
Failure.
Is that it? Okay. I'm going to have Deviant come in here real quick and give the results for the Gringo Warrior Challenge. Should be in or out, so just a second. But I'd like to go ahead and thank everybody for coming out. Want to thank Ninja Networks for providing the entertainment last night. And I actually got it right this time, and it's a shame none of them are in here to hear me say it. I keep saying Ninja Networks. Excuse me, I keep saying Network Ninjas, and it's actually Ninja Networks. I finally got it right, and none of them are here. We still have some T-shirts left if anybody wants one. We'll be packing them up here in a little bit. And unfortunately, we never got the freaking challenge up. Some of you might have noticed it was in the program, but never actually. I don't know if it was in the program. It was on the website, but they apparently had technical difficulties. Three of their main servers crashed, and they spent all day yesterday trying to make it happen, and it just didn't happen. So, 2 minutes. Okay. I don't sing.
I can tell a joke.
I like money.
DVDs are available in the vendor room.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the last of the DVDs are available in the vendor room as well. Hopefully next weekend, since I don't have anything going on, I'll be trying to get the page updated with everybody's slides and some of the YouTube stuff. So hopefully. Freaks me out when you point that thing at me, man. It steals your soul. Give me my soul back. Yeah, I really want to thank Deviant and Jackalope for running the lockpicking village. We really hadn't thought of actually doing contests or anything like that at all. And he approached me with the idea, and I suddenly realized, we've actually had talks on lockpicking here, and people really enjoyed them. It would be really cool to have the actual boards set up. So I'm actually glad that was able to happen. And huge thanks to 23B, actually. Okay. Yeah. Well, a couple of things. One, we had some sound issues last night for the entertainment that couldn't get resolved. So the mobile club, the mobile nightclub actually ended up saving the day by being able to provide the music for the entertainment. Also, previous Gringo Warrior challenges have featured a door that you had to pick your way out of, and the 23B folks actually built a steel cage that you got in. Yeah, there was a door. The door never got closed, though.
Yeah. This year, the fabrication this year is way more badass than anything we've ever seen. So for those who don't know, because it's going to... Can I come back next? For those who don't know, show of hands, how many people saw or participated in Gringo Warrior this year? All right. So that's like half the room. That's good. The deal is, it's a scenario game. Imagine you're at a con in Southern California. You know, it could be LayerOne. It could be another con called. How many people have been to TorCon? All right. The SoCal cons, they're a great scene. They're the perfect size. You get to actually interact with your friends. It's not just, oh my God, I don't know if we're going to fucking have time to do anything. It's a great localized scene. Like, hey, everyone gets to hang out. But you're on a smoke break, and you're like, hey, is there a party tonight? I don't know what's happening. Who's got a plan? Nobody knows what's happening. Is there a room party? And some joker, probably Kaminsky, is like, I got a fucking plan. We got to go down to TJ, like cheap tequila and donkey shows. And so you go to Tijuana, So you're down to Tijuana, and it's a good time. If you've never been there with Dan knows how to do it at Tijuana. But by the end of the night, like it just gets bad. Like, the fucking train comes off the rails. And before you know it, you wake up groggy and dazed in the back room of some shitbag police station. And there's some guy screaming at you about how drunk and disorderly you were, and you've got to pay some fine. And you're like, what's my fine? He's like, well, we have this ATM card that was in your wallet. Your fine is whatever's in your bank account. And we're going to fucking, if you don't have, you're going to be facing serious time. You're like, Jesus Christ, is this real? Like, clearly, I mean, are these really cops? If they're not cops, they're fake. If they're real cops, they're seriously corrupt. If I comply, am I going to just be dumped in the desert? So they stripped you of your wallet and your ID, but they didn't strip you of your pics. So that's how we came up with this whole game called Gringo Warrior. And it's a great time. You have to get out of cuffs, you have to get out of a cell, you have to get out of a jail, you have to beat up a guard. It's a whole great scene. And this year had to be my favorite time ever doing it, because how many people saw the winner this year? How many people saw the 12-year-old named Ella? Yeah, she's right back there. There's Ella. She is the LayerOne version of Jenna Lynn from DEF CON. Like, this was the final score sheet. And, like, not only did she win, she fucking, like, raped everyone. There was no, like, after she was like late yesterday, and people all day were like, dude, I'm not fucking playing that. Like, I can't come close to this girl. Like, yeah, so it was really fun. Everyone had a great time. And even if you weren't a pro, like, how many people who've never picked before or never were like really big into it still played at this con? Was it still fun? You could still do it. The whole idea of the game is that anyone can play, anyone can show up, anyone can still have a good time. You can still learn, you can still have fun, and at the end of the day, you never know what's going to happen. And I really want to thank you so much for letting us just show up and rock out, because it was a treat. It was a pleasure to be here, and I thank you so much, Noid and Evil and everybody else. This was a real blast. Thank you.
Well, with that, thanks everybody for coming on out. We'll see you next year. We appreciate the folks that filled out comment cards. We've been looking through them. We're seeing some consistent attitudes towards the hotel. We'll be taking those into consideration. Yeah, I've noticed that as well. So, yeah, no, we are looking at the feedback cards. If you haven't filled one out, please do so, because we're looking at them already, trying to figure out what we're going to do for next year and how we're going to address some things. So, yeah, more tolerance to fun. And with that, see you guys next year. Peace out, y'all. Pool party.